Preview. Preview.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to dig into a new topic.
Well, for today, we're going to be looking at something that I think a lot of us are interested in.
Yeah.
How our mental health can really affect our relationships with other people.
Oh, absolutely.
And, whether you're, maybe noticing things in your own life, or
Right.
maybe you're just fascinated by people and how we connect with each other.
Their dynamics.
I think this is going to be a really great conversation.
Yeah.
So to help us unpack all of this, we're turning to an episode of the Heart to Heart Talks podcast.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a great one. And this episode was called Mental Health and Relationships.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And the host, Amara, talked with a counselor named Dr. Tunde,
Oh, wow.
who really specializes in this area,
Helping people work through that.
Yeah, helping people understand their feelings and build those healthy relationships.
That's fantastic.
And one of the things that really stood out to me from this episode was Dr. Tunde's description of mental health challenges as like an invisible battle
Oh, wow. Yeah.
that so many people are fighting.
That's so true.
And it really made me think about, how often we might totally misinterpret somebody's actions
Oh, yeah.
if we don't know what they're going through.
Exactly. Like, what's going on in their head?
We just see what's on the outside.
What do you think about that?
It's like we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
You don't see everything underneath.
There's so much more going on beneath the surface.
Exactly.
So how do we start to bridge that gap
Right.
and try to understand
Well, and I think that's
what's
where
happening?
Dr. Tunde's emphasis on active listening comes in.
Yeah.
And I think so many people hear that phrase, active listening,
Right.
and they think, oh, I just, sit there quietly
Right. Just nod my head.
while the other person's talking. But it's so much more than that,
Oh, absolutely.
isn't it?
It's about really tuning in
Yes.
to not just their words, but
Yeah, the emotion.
the emotion behind them.
And Dr. Tunde suggested asking open-ended questions.
Oh, that's good.
Like, how are you feeling today? Or
Yeah.
is there anything you want to talk about?
I like that.
Which I really like because
Yeah.
it kind of invites the person to share what they're comfortable with.
At their own pace,
Yeah, without feeling pressured.
without feeling interrogated.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that sometimes,
Yeah.
even if they don't feel like talking, just being present can make such a difference.
Oh, huge.
Dr. Tunde actually gave the example of just sitting with someone watching a movie together or
Yeah, that's it.
doing something that they enjoy.
Right, just being there.
Yeah, it's about showing up
Yeah, and being present.
in those small but really meaningful ways.
And I think sometimes we as humans, we tend to overcomplicate things.
Oh, for sure.
Where we feel like we need to have all the answers.
Right.
We need to offer these big solutions. And really,
Yeah.
it's the simple things sometimes.
Right.
Just being there, offering comfort and support.
But I also imagine that constantly, being on for someone
Right.
can be emotionally draining.
It can.
So how do we balance,
Yeah.
supporting others while also taking care of our own mental well-being?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Dr. Tunde had a really good analogy for this.
Okay.
He talked about putting on your own oxygen mask first
Oh, yeah.
before helping others.
I love that analogy.
It's so good.
Because it really highlights that self-care isn't selfish.
Right.
It's essential.
It's necessary.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. You can't give what you don't have.
So how do we actually put that into practice?
Right.
Like, what does self-care look like when we're also trying to support someone else?
That's a good question. Well, it looks different for everyone, but I think it involves, setting aside time
Yeah.
for those activities that really help you recharge.
Right.
So whether that's exercise or spending time in nature or reading or
Listening to music
anything that really,
nourishes your soul.
I'm really glad you brought up boundaries though,
Yes.
because I think that's something so many of us struggle with,
Boundaries are hard.
especially in those close relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you don't want to hurt people's feelings.
exactly.
Right,
So how do
right.
we set boundaries in a way that feels loving and supportive?
Well, I think, again,
Yeah.
clear communication is so important.
Yeah.
It's okay to say things like,
Okay.
I care about you and I want to be there for you, but I also need a little bit of time for myself to recharge.
Yeah.
or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now and I need a little space, but I'll be available to talk later.
Those are really helpful phrases.
Yeah.
Because it's about, expressing your needs and your limits.
Absolutely.
In a way that feels honest and respectful.
In a healthy way.
Yeah, it's not about pushing the other person away. It's about taking care of yourself.
Right.
So that you can show up as your best self.
Exactly. And Dr. Tunde also talked about
how important it is to communicate effectively within a couple.
Right.
When one or both partners are dealing with these mental health challenges.
Right.
Because he said it's so easy to fall into these patterns of blame or criticism.
Totally.
Which could be so damaging.
Yeah, it's like that saying, hurt people.
Exactly.
When we're struggling, it can be so hard to communicate in a healthy way.
Right. And so he suggested using I-some statements to express how you're feeling.
Right.
Without putting the blame on the other person. So, for example, instead of saying, you're always so moody.
Right.
You could try saying something like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed by tension right now.
I see how that little shift in language, it can make a huge difference.
It takes the blame off.
Yeah, it's about focusing on your own experience and your needs.
Your own feelings.
Rather than pointing fingers. And then on the flip side, I remember Dr. Tunde also emphasized the importance of expressing appreciation.
Oh, yes.
Even for like the small things.
The little things.
Yeah, like saying thank you for being there for me, or I really appreciate your patience.
That goes a long way.
It can go such a long way in strengthening that bond and reminding each other that, even when things are tough, there's still love and care there.
Absolutely.
And speaking of relationships, Dr. Tunde also had some great insights. About supporting children who might be facing mental health challenges.
It's tough.
It's so tough as a parent.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, you feel overwhelmed and unsure of what to do.
Like, what do I do?
So what did he have to say about that?
Well, he said a lot of those same principles we've been talking about.
Okay.
Active listening.
Yeah.
Creating a safe space. Being patient. All of that applies to kids as well.
Yeah.
He suggested asking gentle, open-ended questions. Like, is there anything you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Or do you want to tell me what's bothering you?
Right.
And reassuring them that it's okay to feel all sorts of emotions.
Yeah, all those big feelings.
Even the difficult ones.
And sometimes they might not even be able to express those feelings in words.
Right. They might not have the language for it.
So what are some things that parents should be looking for?
Well, he mentioned things like changes in behavior.
Okay.
Like maybe a loss of appetite or changes in sleep patterns. Maybe they're having trouble concentrating. Maybe they're withdrawing from activities that they used to enjoy.
Right, like their hobbies.
Yeah, or maybe they're more irritable.
Oh, yeah.
Or angry.
So it's about being attuned to those shifts.
Absolutely.
And not just brushing them off as, oh, that's just kids being kids.
Right, because it could be something more.
Exactly. And if parents are concerned, what did he recommend?
He said it's always a good idea to seek professional help from a therapist or a counselor.
Who specializes in working with children.
Exactly, because sometimes we need that extra support to help our kids navigate their emotional world.
Yeah, it makes me think about how important it is for parents to really educate themselves about mental health so that they can better understand and support their kids.
Right, it's just as important as their physical health.
Totally.
Yeah.
And early intervention can make such a big difference.
Huge.
In a child's life.
Can change the whole trajectory.
So, as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I keep thinking back to Dr. Tunde's message about kindness and patience.
It's so important.
Not just towards others, but towards ourselves, too.
Absolutely. We're often our own worst critics.
He said something that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
He said, your kindness can be a light in someone's darkness.
Oh, wow.
It's such a beautiful thought.
It is.
It makes you realize that we're all so interconnected and that even our small action can have a ripple effect on the people around us.
It's true.
So as you're going about your day, think about how what we've talked about today might change the way you interact with other people.
That's a good point.
How can you be more supportive of your friends, your family,
your coworkers,
even strangers that you meet?
Even strangers.
And don't forget to be kind to yourself, too.
Oh, that's key.
Acknowledge your own struggle.
Self-compassion.
And seek support if you need it.
Absolutely.
Because taking care of our own mental well-being helps us to show up
Yes.
as our best selves
For sure.
in all of our relationships.
And that creates a more positive environment for everyone.
Exactly. It's like a positive feedback loop.
It is.
So thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
This was great.
Until next time.
Preview.